For the last 10 years that I've been growing blueberries, I have fertilized my blueberries 3 times in the spring with ammonium sulfate in April, May, and June. I learned that from Oregon State University literature, and early on it seems like it was making a difference. My plants grew pretty quickly. I've got some pretty big plants now, and over time I've started to kind of wonder, is it still making a difference? I have over 75 plants now, and so I wind up spending a lot of money on this ammonium sulfite fertilizer, getting it by the 50-pound bag. And so this year I decided to do a little experiment. And in April, when I fertilized all my plants, I chose not to fertilize 4 of the plants and to see if I would notice any difference throughout the growing season. So each month I came back about once a month and filmed the differences I saw to see if there was any change in the size of the plant, in the size of the berries, the amount of the berries, just to see if I could see any difference. And now here we are in October, and I'll show you what I found out through that experience. And also I'm gonna hint at an experiment that I'm gonna do next year to see on these smaller plants here, if fertilizing those early on will make a difference. I'm gonna fertilize 4 of those and not fertilize the other 4 and kind of see what happens. And then also with the experiment with the bigger plants, I'm gonna continue this on for a few more years to see if not fertilizing those same 4 plants over a year or 2 or 3 years makes a difference in the long run. But for now, I'm going to show you what I found out here in the first growing season by not fertilizing 4 of these. This first clip is about 1 month after the first fertilizing. It's May 18th, and I'm just kind of zipping through it because honestly, you can't really see much of a difference after a month of fertilizing. So here we are 2 months after that first fertilizing in late June. These first plants are the blue gold. The one with the flag is the one that's not fertilized. You'll see they have berries on them, and really, again, not much of a difference. In fact, the one with the flag that was not fertilized probably has a few more berries than the other one. Probably not a big enough difference to think that like not fertilizing actually caused it to grow more berries. It's probably just that plant was going to produce more anyways. So now we're going to move on down to the next set of plants, which is the Brigida variety. The one on the right with the flag hasn't been fertilized. The one on the left has. You can see that they both have quite a bit of fruit. These are pretty heavy producers, and really not really any big difference between the amount of fruit on either of them. If anything, the unfertilized one might have a little bit more fruit. Their plants are about the same size. With the Stanley, it was about the same thing. The one in the middle that was unfertilized with the flag had a little bit more fruit than the others, but not really enough to be significant. The Aurora plants both had quite a bit of fruit on them, and they pretty much looked identical to each other, about the same height, same amount of fruit. So again, not real significant difference on these ones. So here we are in October for the end of the first season of this experiment. You'll see the blue gold. They really don't look a whole lot different between the 2 or 3 plants I had here. Again, the one with the flag is the one that was not fertilized. I should mention that my watering kind of quit working towards the end of the season, so some of these plants didn't grow quite as much as they would have probably otherwise. But again, in the end, just really not a difference on these. They really both didn't grow much at all. So then moving on to the next set of plants here, the Brigidas. What you'll notice on this is there's actually new growth down on the bottom of the one that I didn't fertilize. It has about 3 or 4 new stems down there, and on the one that was fertilized, it only has 1. They are both about the same size. I'll zoom out here. The one that wasn't fertilized is actually a little bit smaller, but again, it's got that new growth down there that you can see there. And then the one that was fertilized just has a small amount of new growth. So again, definitely didn't look like the fertilizer helped, because in fact, the one that wasn't fertilized put on a little bit more growth than the one that was. So then we move on to the Stanleys here. These are ones that were pretty young plants, and I think the lack of water kind of hurt all of them from growing. But again, you'll see really no difference in the growth in all 3 of these plants. The one in the middle was the one that wasn't fertilized. The 2 to the sides were. And if you look at the video from the start of the year, these plants really haven't changed much. Again, no new growth really on any of them. they're all about the same size as they started. So no big difference with the Stanleys. And then finally we have the Auroras. Again, I got 3 of these, one that wasn't fertilized, 2 that were. That one in the middle there was not fertilized. They, once again, look like they're all about the same size, about the same amount of leaves. Just really not much of a difference on these. And looking back at the earlier footage, again, they just really haven't changed much. None of these actually have new growth. Again, might have been due to watering. I don't think these are a variety that grow all that big. I've had these ones for a long time, and they've kind of stayed shorter than my other plants. But looking for new growth, you don't see any there. So it looks like after one growing season, not fertilizing these 4 plants really didn't make much of a difference. They look pretty much just the same as the ones next to them of the same variety. Maybe after a year or 2 or 3, it'll start to make a difference. And so I'm going to continue this experiment and keep doing the same thing for the next few years on the same 4 plants, and we'll see what happens. Also, with this experiment I'm going to try next year with these smaller plants where I fertilize 4 of them and not fertilize the others. Maybe we'll see that on the smaller plants, it makes a really big difference and they grow a lot faster. And then maybe as they get older, the fertilizer doesn't make as much of a difference, in which case I could save some money and not have to fertilize my plants as much. But anyways, only time will tell. If this video was helpful to you, please go ahead and hit the like button. Or if you want to figure out what happens with this experiment or the experiment with the bigger plants, please go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Well, see you later.